Welcome to another episode of the SENDhelp podcast. And you might have seen the shorts already, but you haven't seen the full because we had issues before. But we got Sara back, and she is going to be with us and talking about, well, lots of things because we're very privileged to have someone like Sara on here. Sara, it's Sara, isn't it?
Yeah.
I got it in my head when I said that the first time. I was like, it's because I made the mistake the first one. And said we're gonna, yeah. So we're quite lucky because you've got very varied knowledge of all sorts, especially like personal journey, and again, you work in the field of Sen, and you're a big advocate as well. On top of that, so you've kind of got it's great. We've got a wealth of knowledge in front of us. But yeah, I'll let you introduce yourself and kind of how you got here, your kids and stuff like that, and how we are now. Yeah.
Thanks, Nate. Well, first of all, I am mum. I have got two little poppets. My eldest is now 21 and has just finished uni. Dissertation is in, so we're holding tight on that one. My youngest is 14. And they're both diagnosed. My daughter was diagnosed with Asperger's when she was 6. That child was born angry. She didn't sleep, she screamed, everything was just drama. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I didn't know anything about autism, didn't know anything about ADHD. It was just, so then it was first mentioned to me by what was actually a friend's mum who was a manager for a care agency. Things sort of started to make a bit more sense. She was a perfectionist at school, gifted and talented in lower school, extremely articulate, but she'd get these really big fancy words and just sort of throw them in random sentences. And then that was causing the problems because she was so academically gifted, but her emotional ability was significantly behind that gap, which was causing a lot of the problems of her feeling understood. So she got a diagnosis at 6, and we were also moving areas, so we did finish that whole sort of half term of doing a 45-minute school run to get, because it wasn't, we didn't want to do an in-term move, and then she moved over to here. And she was doing okay at school. It was more the problems at home, and then the move up to middle school. Things started really changing for her. I won't go into too much, keep it brief, but mental health really took a hold of her. She was a significant self-harmer. She was hiding pencil sharpener blades in her tie, getting herself in the toilets, cutting her arms. I didn't know about it for quite a long time, and that comes that parent guilt. Yeah. So to any of you that are going through this at the moment, please don't feel guilty, because when our children want to hide something from us, they will hide it from us. And we can't be over them all of the time, so please be kind to yourself. When I did find out, the floor was obviously taken away from me. Felt like I'd been beaten, thrown down a cliff, all sorts. Didn't know I was getting calls from the school, pick her up, take her to A&E. They were always superficial, but she would refuse treatment. So I ended up getting her a first aid kit. She wouldn't have help from CAMS because the first one that we did go through, the referral got accepted. The clinician closed the referral with mum knows about Asperger's. I was currently working for a charity. Well, actually, because of her diagnosis, when we first moved over, my son was still little. We were referred to a charity by the health visitors, and it was a 6-week course on learning about autism, ADHD, rage cycle, sensory processing, and it was absolutely, what's the word I'm looking for? It really opened my eyes. I really started learning about what was going on, and really kind of got me ready for what was coming in with my son. I got so much from him. I started volunteering for them, and then I ended up working for them, doing training, setting up all the support groups and things. So that was the start of my career within SEN. So that was about 13 years ago. So because the clinician decided that, I knew about Asperger's in my daughter's very autistic brain, do I only need mum? and that is still the case. She's only just started therapy in the last 3 months, so she's 21. That's how long that's stuck in her head for. Though we were round and round in circles, every time we'd get, they referred to CAMHS, they tried, she couldn't engage with them, just got, told refusal to engage. Got to upper school, things just got worse, then we hit COVID, and then unfortunately she did try to unalive herself in the holidays. There's no words. It's a horrific time, and the worst thing about it is there are so many of you guys going through this at the moment in these situations, and feeling an absolute loss at what you can do. The biggest advice I can give from my own personal lived experiences is have their backs. They need to know that you've got their backs. When I got my daughter home, I didn't know what to do. I was accused of helicopter parenting. I was suffocating her, but she wouldn't sleep in her room because it reminded her. She wanted to sleep in my bed, but then I was getting on her nerves, and she wanted to go out, and I was panicking. And I didn't know what to do. She wouldn't engage with CAMHS, and I was trying to say to CAMHS, will you work with me so I can work with her? Can you support me to work with her? No, we can't. That's not the kind of work that we do. And then it was kind of you just left in limbo. How do you parent this? And anybody who knows anyone that's been through a mental health crisis, when you're going through a mental health crisis, you're absolutely vile. All your hate is being projected onto that one person that you're solid for you. So that was all being thrown at me constantly all the time. And she hated me for finding her and making her go to hospital. So that was a really hard time to kind of navigate, but we worked through it, and I kept saying to her, I don't know what you want me to do, I don't know what you want me to do. And she said to me, I want you to listen to me. And I said, but I am listening to you, darling. And she said, no, not really. And I had to take that on board, because as much as I was saying that I listened to my kids, I put my kids first, I didn't care what other people said, my words, my body language, my actions weren't actually following up what she was feeling from me. So I'd go into a school meeting and then partly I kind of agree with the school, because there was still an element of me believed that they were doing always going to have her best interests at heart. And for some of them they do, and I'll come on to that later, but sometimes they don't. And actually it didn't matter whether at that point with her, it didn't matter whether I agreed with the school or not. What she needed to know was that I believed her and I was there for her, and it didn't matter, so I had to really change. And then I lost a lot of friends, family over that time as well, because I was being told she's manipulating me. Yeah, she was, absolutely, but she was a 15, 16-year-old girl that was going through a mental health crisis and didn't want to be on this planet. So manipulate all you like. We're going to work through this, and so be it. And we did work through it, and she is now my best friend. She's so she's just managed to finish university. University looks very different to her than what it does for your typical student, but she's done it, and she's international politics and sociology.
Oh, amazing! Yeah, not that subject.
Incredible, yeah. And now it's like a whole other subject to talk about. But as we've got the report that's just come out on NEET, so they're not in education, employment, or training. We have got 1 million young people at the moment that are not accessing anything, which is shocking. So I'm so very proud of her, but she's now out with about a 70k debt that's going to accrue interest, and is struggling to find a job because she's autistic, ADHD, social skills, social anxiety. It's trying to find something now, and the pressure's on. So that's a whole other thing. My boy, oh my God, I swear he's an absolute asshole at the moment. I want to stick his head through a wall. Anyone who's got a 14-year-old boy, now I understand. Year 9 boys, they are horrific.
Year 9, yeah, that's yeah.
Yeah. He obviously I spotted the signs quite early with him. He was very, very poorly when he was born. He had a hypoxic glycemic, and I can never say the last word, inflammatory. It's the main cause of cerebral palsy. We were really lucky he was born at a hospital that had an EQ. Had we been born anywhere else, he probably would have had cerebral palsy. We probably wouldn't have been able to prevent the brain damage. He was in the system from straight away from that. So at 2, he got referred from the hospital paediatricians over to the community paediatricians to be in the system for possible neuro. My brain's going now, autism or ADHD. So we had two from the age 2 up until, so he was 6 when he was diagnosed with autism. Even though he was in the system, I was being told, I don't know how many times I filled out the social communication forms, how I was told he was copying his sister's behaviour, they were chalk and cheese, all of that kind of stuff. I was told definitely didn't have ADHD, got his autism diagnosis 2 weeks before his 6th birthday, and then we had a locum paediatrician the following year who then diagnosed him with moderate to severe ADHD 3 weeks before his 7th birthday. And considering I was told by a paediatrician there was no ADHD, he now attends a SEMH special school. That little boy was the kid in school, the little one that was tearing up the classrooms, having all the kids evacuated. He had a scattering schema when we run SENDhelp, as a group for under 5s. They come in and tip things, pull things down, and that's called a scattering schema. And it's trying to get a sense of control. You couldn't have any DVDs, I'm going back now, DVDs, books or anything. You'd climb up the bookshelf, everything, get in the toy box, everything out, and then sit in the toy box. Climb up everything, be up on the windowsills. I was always moving my furniture around because he was just everywhere I went. It was a risk assessment, scanning, like drop my daughter off at school, wait to go into nursery, and he'd be pegging it, and everyone would call me Mo because I would be running up. Couldn't go in a park that didn't have gates. It was nuts. Yeah. And you put him in his stroller, and he'd be like hanging down and holding on to the wheels. And you look back and it was just crazy kid, but he was happy. He wasn't a crier like his sister, and he slept. His sister didn't and doesn't. So you kind of take your wins, don't you? Nursery were brilliant with him. He had amazing key workers at nursery. They were incredible with him. He had to have something to block the key codes for the doors because he'd watch and he'd learn and he'd climb up and he'd be unlocking the doors and things like that, or when he'd be jumping off the playing stuff and then just bounce up and run off again. And then he started school, amazing transition. They were really good. His key worker to the reception. They had his transition book, so he had pictures of the classroom, pictures of the cloakroom, where to put his lunch, where you have lunch. So, this is a really good time of year actually to talk about that while we're getting ready to go up to the next schools. Transition is everything, and as much as we can prepare them, it really helps. We'd have extra days. He had extra kind of like those step-up sessions, and then we had this whole kind of booklet to look at over the school holidays. And then he was even allowed, we went in for kind of like 15 minutes on the teacher training day, the day before the school opened in September as well, just to get him comfortable with that. Teacher decided that she was going to have a new hairstyle over the holidays, so that threw him a little bit. Didn't recognise her, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, didn't even think about that." So these are all the kind of things that can actually really set a kid off when they're going in. How dare they change their hairstyle, for crying out loud? Or their perfume, or wear a completely different outfit. They feel different to, in an autistic head. That, whoa, what's going on? Why are they different? She was an incredible teacher. Unfortunately, the head teacher, because it was a small village school, the head teacher was an absolute dragon, and the reception teacher was on and off sick. She did end up leaving. So of course, then we started with different teachers, uncertainty, inconsistencies, not what was going on. So then the behaviour started. We could see that sort of decline in behaviour. Went into year 1, and honestly, it was just absolutely horrendous. So this is all going on. So I've got the daughter that's kind of falling apart, and then the boy with all of this. So I'm getting calls from the school because she's cutting, or she's phoning me. Can you come and get me? Can you come and get me? Da, 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 da. And then I've got 40 phones from the school. You need to come and get him. We can't manage his needs. So I then sort of going through sort of my own training around SENDhelp and things like that, started volunteering and whatnot. So then I had to do the really hard thing. And this is a really hard thing for any parents to have to do, but it's something that myself and my colleague that I run the support group, we've run a support group now for 7 years. And it's parents to parent, for parents with children with autism and ADHD or believe they have. And generally, you know, parents come along to us at the beginning of their journey. My heart always breaks a little bit for them. And then we've also got, you know, our hardcore regulars that have been coming a long time, and they're, you know, part of the furniture type thing. Unless your child is poorly and they need to be taken home, or the school are officially suspending them or officially permanently excluding them, you do not have to go to that school to pick that child up.
So I've heard that before, I think, and I think I wouldn't have thought that. When I first heard that, I thought, oh no, I thought you did. But then it does make sense about if they're in. So would there be would there be like a limit where you would kind of morally want to go in? So if they're like, as you said, if they're like in the class or during the class, are really unsettled, but then you get, I suppose that would be you'd kind of go in yourself as a parent. But when it's just like, they've gone in and not sitting still, I'll come pick them up, which I think a lot of parents get as well, don't they? And it regularly, every day, just like them sort of thing.
Yeah. So what we advise is let the call go to voicemail, and then listen to the voicemail, and then make a decision, make a call about whether or not you think. So if it's they're just saying, oh, we can't get them to settle. And also what you'll find is generally these are the types of schools that will be saying, so when the parents are trying to get them, you know, referred for an assessment, or, you know, try and get SEND support in place, these will be the schools that we say, well, we don't have any problems, but they'll be the schools that are phoning you every half an hour. So actually, sometimes, and as harsh as it sounds, we need these things recorded. And it is really heartbreaking when your child is being suspended all the time, but actually that is proven, that is evidence. So if you're going to pick up your child all of the time anyway, you might as well have it being done lawfully. It's being recorded. It then has to go through to the educational welfare in the local authority. Now, every local authority calls them something different. It could be educational welfare, it could be the education team, it could be an access team. They're all called something different, and it's worth finding out who yours are. But when schools officially suspend, there is a notification that goes through to the local authority so they can keep an eye on what's going on. Yeah. If it keeps on happening, then they're going to want to know why.
Do you reckon that all schools record it like that though? Because
they have to, and that's why we say don't go and pick. I mean, it is a really hard one, you know, because everything inside of you as a parent wants to go and get your little one. You know they're upset, you know they're having a hard time, you know that you can calm them down and take them home, and that is every being of being a parent. But actually, that's not being recorded.
So you need to not pick them up, so that if they do, you have to action them into a suspension, which then the local authorities. Okay, I get it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Then what you're doing is you're building that evidence to say school can't meet need.
Yeah.
And that, if you are going to go down the EACP route, that is providing the evidence that you need to say the school aren't doing it. It's also pinging actually, what are you doing about? Are you getting advice from? You know, most local authorities will have some level of advisory. Some local authorities will use their special schools that will have like an outreach team. Every local authority, again, is different. This is all the kind of stuff that would be on the local offer. So wherever you are, let's say that you're in, I don't know, Newcastle, just type in Newcastle local offer and it will take you to the website. That is the local offer. They all look very different. Some of them are quite easy to navigate. Some of them are an absolute headache. Hopefully, you know, you find your way around. So it's kind of like getting that so you know what's going on and looking at what SEND support should be happening. What should they should be reducing these incidents. They should be putting the support into place to prevent the child getting into these circumstances. So if we're not recording it, then we don't know what's going on. If we're just going to go and pick them up, then we're actually
it didn't happen.
Doing anything.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, you know, that we don't know. So I mean, I was up and down, and in the end I stopped. So then they did actually start suspending him, and I was talking like once or twice a week. He was getting suspended, and it doesn't. And this is I'm so like you know, it contradicts itself because suspensions don't work.
No.
With neurodivergent kids, they don't care. No. I'm going to kick off. You're going to send me home.
I think as well, people misunderstand that they actually understood what happened. So from my personal experience, and I know with my oldest, and I'm sure a lot of people with ADHD as well, is when you're getting in trouble for such trivial things that you don't understand why that's such a, like, so if it is, so yes, fighting or, you know, the aggressive behaviour, there's a limit, isn't it? That's just be like, let's set time. But when you're getting like suspended for just like not being able to concentrate, and it builds up, and then the stress of getting detentions, and you're just resisting the detentions, you know, and it just becomes a game of like micromanaging your behaviour, like, and you don't understand it. So it's never going to work if you feel unjustified. You feel hard done by getting the punishment, and sometimes it's fair enough, isn't it? So you're never going to learn it as a punishment. You feel like that shouldn't have happened, so you're not learning from it straight away.
And you're getting your dopamine.
Yeah.
And you know, ADHD myself, I'm running off that dopamine, and if that meant like causing a bit of trouble, I mean, I was a late diagnosis. I wasn't diagnosed till I was 45. You know, I need that dopamine kick. So with kids, like if they're sitting there and their work is boring, they've tried saying I can't do this or whatever, they're being ignored, or they've been told they're not allowed to fidget. You know, ADHD, you know, I don't sit still, and I'm medicated. You know, like. They need to fidget. They need to be moving around. Need to be wobbling. It's okay. Why can't they just get up and stand there and shake it out? Why don't you get the whole class up and shake it all out? Yeah. Sit back down again. Every child would love that. That's fine. You just keep it controlled. Back to learning again. It's working with the conditions to understand. But when we start punishing those conditions, and then wonder why these kids are going into meltdowns, they're going into fight or flight, then we start. This is what happens, and then these kids go down the route of needing an EHCP or needing to go into specialist provision, when actually, if we strip that all the way back again, we shouldn't have got to that point, because we should have been listening to the child, but not just with our ears. Children, it's everything about them. We need to be watching their body language, you know, how they are, their mood, their behaviour tells us everything. I hate the word challenging behaviour, I really do, but behind every behaviour is a need. And then once we start looking at the need rather than the behaviour, then we actually start seeing the child and what is actually going on. But if we keep reacting to just the behaviour, then it is going to keep on escalating. And that was exactly what was happening with my boy going through. And it was just getting too much, so I sort of forced it down then these legal processes, as to say, to make sure then that everything was being documented properly, so that I was able to get the evidence. And you know, the head teacher was, you know, there was cases where, you know, one of the TAs, and she was an absolute, you know, she was really lovely, and you know, I thought that the TAs are unsung heroes. I have to say that to all of you TAs out there, you guys are like absolutely incredible.
Not mold, that's a bad word to say, but like the inside source, aren't they? They're like the parents in the school. Like if I've always come across, I speak to loads of TAs as well, and they seem to be they're more like family oriented, aren't they? They're kind of more with what's going on in the world and the SEN, they're more on the floor sort of thing.
Yeah, they know our kids, and they really take it.
How do you get paid? What the hell's that about?
Yeah, minimum wage, and they work their way up. And what the schools, because the schools are under such a tight budget, that they can't afford to increase the wages. So what we need is really experienced, good TAs. But with any of us with a career, when you get better at your job, you want to promote, you work your way up, you get a higher pay raise. That's everything about working hard.
You was good at, and eventually, which is teaching. So at the end of it, you're just doing business managing.
And what's happening with teachers and TAs and teachers, what happens is they get up to that level, and then the schools are having to let them go so they can take in lower level ones, because they're cheaper, because they can't afford, because of all the budget cuts in schools. And it's honestly, it's an absolute joke. So these TAs, I mean, they take absolute batterings from our kids sometimes. There's one TA, and she was bruised from under her armpit all the way down, and her back, absolutely black and blue, by my 6-year-old. And it was heartbreaking. But then I take that little boy home, and he curls himself up in the corner, and he's crying, banging his head up against the kitchen cupboards, going, I'm the worst boy in the world, I'm the worst boy in the world, I'm the worst boy in the world, over and over and over again. Because he didn't want to hurt her. He cared deeply for this woman. He knew how much. She would sit there and massage his little feet. I hate feet, I can't touch his feet. But she would take his socks and everything off and sit in the corridor and massage all of his toes and all of his feet, because she knew that's what he really liked, and that would help calm him down. You know, the bond between them was incredible. But because the head teacher she was one on a power trip, didn't agree with things, wouldn't put the support in, she was the one creating all the problems. So my boy was always going to end up in a special school, but he didn't need to be one and in as early as he did if things had been done properly and worked with me to get things in place. So he then ended up going to, so we did get his EHCP, the nightmare, it's PTSD, EHCP just made it like PTSD to me now. I wanted a special school that was just over, because I live on the boundary for a different county, was basically told no, even though it was the closest school. So they went out to ASD provisions, and then we got offered a place which was one about 35 to 40 minutes away. I went to visit them. I kept pushing back with the local authority. They were being arseholes. I went up to visit them. They were lovely, really, really lovely. So it was either that or homeschool while I was going through an appeal, and I didn't think that was best for either of me and my son. You know, as an example, when we were in lockdown and I tried teaching him year 2 maths, I cried. He laughed. I cried some more, and then I let that panda thing take over his learning through lockdown. So I can't homeschool. So he started there. So, you know, that was in the July. They said, right, you know, we've only just been notified. We need to, because it was agreed that he needed a two to one. He needed 2 one-to-ones because of his escalation of behaviour at the crisis point he was in. For the first half term, the local authority agreed. They were like, we need to employ a TA because we don't have the staff. So we get to September and they're sort of kind of working on that one. So from the September to the October half term, he was out of school. And then it was all agreed he could go in on a phased transfer back to school. So we start off on an hour a day, 2 hours a day. These things are, like, at the time, they feel like really hard work and really annoying, but they really are in the best interest of the child, because we want to make sure that these placements work for them. And if kids have been out of school for quite a while, and there's a lot of kind of trauma, and then we just hurtle them back into a new setting, even though that it was a smaller unit, we are still going to come, you know, unstuck. Then we had the whole transport nightmare. A lot of parents will, to get this, you fight to get your kids the HCP, and you get them to a school, and then you're up against the I have to say, the bullshit that is transport. Honestly, it's just one thing after another, and that is why we're all so exhausted and sick and tired of it all. So then that starts, because I was being told no transport, so I said I will do the hour a day. I'll sit in the car park for an hour, but when it goes up to 2 hours a day, I want the taxis to start taking him, because he's got to start getting used to it. I was very new. I didn't want him going in a taxi. That's another thing as well that parents face. I don't want my kid going in a taxi. There are some children that I understand that it really isn't possible for them. I had to speak to a friend. His child was a year older than mine, and he went through things similar. And I was like, you know, they were quite sort of the same sort of temperament as the kids. Kind of went through the same thing, the unit to the same SEM age school, but he's actually gone on to mainstream now. He said he was fine, and, you know, just give him that chance. He's going to cling to you. Just, you know, be brave, put your big girl pants on, and, you know, take kid to the taxi, off you go. I mean, my kid now, like, he's out the door, he's shut up, like, he doesn't let me go anywhere near the taxi. I'm not allowed to talk to the taxi drivers, anything like that. Honestly, it was and we find this a lot in a lot of different areas, our anxiety feeds into our kids. As much as we think we're hiding it, our kids are feeding off it. So if we are nervous and worried about something, they're going to be picking up on that, and then they're going to be saying they're nervous and worried about it. So we need to be really careful with what it is that we're worried about, and are we putting our worries onto our children and actually preventing them doing something that actually they'd probably be more than able to do. It's understandable that we're going to be worried about our kids because of everything that we go through with them. You know, everything is tough, so we do become extra protective with them. But do see a lot of cases with parents where actually we're putting in barriers in places for them. We're saying, oh, they could never do that, but we don't know.
All the time. Someone from a challenging behaviour background, and knowing that's what I look at as the first for. I know I've done EHCPs for the last year because that's just a crisis, isn't it? As you know, you can't get away from them. But Yeah, I see that all the time. The anxiety, and it feeds through the mother, and it's almost like, or the father, and it's almost like that. So like stuff like trains, for example, right? The mum or the dad will be scared to go on trains, but will be saying, "Oh, I'm so anxious of trains." But then you're saying that out loud, and you're saying about trains. The kids at 4, 5, 6 are gonna grow up thinking there's something wrong with trains. That's because your role as a parent is to model.
Yeah.
And I think this is the massive thing that gets missed in this drama, and fairly enough, because of all the stress that goes on, all the things you have to do. But modelling behaviour for our children is something that we do not do enough with ADHD and autism. And I think multiple ways. One, because I think people think they can't do it without having a condition themselves, which is that's mad. Because again, you've got to teach them as children. So that's the bit I'm talking about. Modelling children behaviour gets missed because you're so focused on they've got ADHD means this, the autism means this, they can't do this, they can't do that. And I think it's a point where the awareness has got so far that we've got to start doing something about it now, in the sense of like, if you know, I like to say, when it comes to my son, and I don't like saying this too much on my profile because I know that how it's going to rub people off the wrong way, but I do not treat my kid like he's got autism or ADHD. People go, what? And they're like, what? Someone like you? Yeah, because I wanted to have a normal life. He hasn't got any HCP. He's got the diagnosis because the school's asked me to. I didn't force him through. He's got medication because I think he wants it. I've asked him. I'm going to let him have a normal life until he gets into a situation that I can see clearly that that's because of ADHD and autism, then I'll act on it. I'm not going to preemptively act on anything because I think that that's going to happen, you know?
Absolutely. And that
it's
is why we all go,
but
it's understanding, you know, with mine, and you said with your child, I know what parts now I've got to grips, and I understood my ADHD is my ADHD. It's not anybody else's, it's mine. This is how my ADHD affects me. My boy at the moment is pushing it. He'll say to me, "Oh, it's because I'm autistic and ADHD," and I'll actually say to him, "Fuck off, kid, shut, go away with that nonsense." Now, it is a reason to why we do certain things or behave in certain ways. It is not an excuse.
it's not altered. Yeah.
And the most empowering thing we can do for our children is help them learn how their condition impacts them, so that they can learn how to help themselves, so they are not as vulnerable, they are not as dependent, because we have got a lot of dependency on things. Well, I can't do anything because I haven't got any support. And yes, we get that, but we are in a crisis right now, and unfortunately, doom and gloom, it ain't getting any better anytime soon.
No, it's not.
So we've got two choices. We either carry on with this and, you know, our kids get worse, or we try and do what we can from a parent's point of view. So we've got an incident going on this week with my boys. Like I say, you know, he went through the ASD unit. They recognised it. They were ASD focused. His primary need is ADHD. It wasn't working. So they helped with us. We got his EHCP changed around, went through a bit of a battle, backwards and forwards. And then year 6, he then started over at this the special SENDhelp school. Year 6, year 7, he had the most incredible teacher. We just need to wizard her everywhere. Really got to understand who he was. Turns out that his EHCP was a load of crap because he didn't really tell us anything about him. And then I've been in battles ever since with the local authority trying to get it right. But that's a whole other thing. So there's been ups and downs. Now, when kids go into these kind of schools, in SENDhelp schools, they are primarily boys. You're primarily ADHD. You're also looking at kids that are coming from like really dysfunctional backgrounds. Now, you know, my family geographic, you know, is a dysfunctional family. I just remember what was his name? Cameron's whole what did he call it? That's a dysfunctional, or was it not dysfunctional? What did he call it? Disadvantaged families or something like that. This whole program that he came out with. We sit on that, you know, that traffic. We are living in social housing, single parent family, kids got different dads, you know, all that kind of thing. But that doesn't mean that I can't be the best mum that, you know, I can be. Just because they don't have their dads in their life doesn't mean that I can't step up and be, you know, that firm, you know. But being firm doesn't mean you don't give them affection and loving. And I think this is across the board at the moment with parenting, this whole kind of like, you know, permissive parenting to authoritative parent, being too gentle, we're being too, or, you know, giving them a slap. You know, you don't need to be violent with your children for them to learn, but also you don't need to let them do everything they well please. There has to be, there are boundaries and disciplines, and we have to wiggle with them.
People naturally do not like, and I've noticed this on social media a lot, people don't like sitting in the grey area, which normally things are. They do sit. So, yes, we've come a long way, so that you don't need to slap your kids or anything like that, because that's trauma. But also, you can't go so far away that you don't aggress any behaviour. And do you know what I mean? It's the middle ground, but people can't argue the middle, because it's harder to argue, isn't it? Because you're kind of like playing both sides, being a bit of a...
You have to.
So you have to kind of conform to one. And I see that a lot in my comment section all the time, the divide between that hard... I say like 80s, 90s parenting, when it's just do as you say for no reason, and then you've got the ones that are just like, yeah, ADHD and autism just means they can do what they want. And it's the middle ground, isn't it? It's like you need to, and that's the hardest bit, isn't it? Because, and again, I suppose everything that's tailored to your child, and that's a different thing. You can't watch social media to see what you're going to be like. It's tailored to your child, and I think that it's misunderstood in the sense of, I would argue sensory issues, right? When I was growing up, and I was working with autism, and especially lots of like learning disabilities and autism, the sensory thing was very obvious, but even then, not for every child. And I see now every child that has autism seems to have a sensory profile at some point, and I don't believe that that's true. I think that's something that's just assumed that comes with autism, just like PDA and ODD used to come with ADHD. Yeah, you know, instead of it being, so it's like generalised, isn't it, instead of person-centred.
I mean, generally, everybody, I think across the board, all people, we all have some kind of sensory need.
Yeah, that's what I mean, yeah.
Like that. It's how much it impacts our day to day. You know, that's where it goes. And, you know, autism generally does come, autism and ADHD, because it's not even actually autism that's, you know, autism generally, both of them generally come with some kind of sensory differences kind of thing. So for me, it's auditory. Mine is auditory. I don't like lots and lots and lots of noise going on. You know, when I'm running the support groups and then the urn starts itself back up again, my parents will get up and turn it off before I've even, because they'll see that I'll go, like, and loads of people talking at the same time. If I'm not prepared for that, I can't cope. I literally start like like that at people. And I find that really interesting, actually, when I'm doing the support groups, and me and my colleague, we're doing that, and they're like, one thing is, you know, if we let, you know, sometimes you just need to let the group go because people want to talk to each other, and that's, you know, it's absolutely fine. But if someone's talking to either, you know, myself or my colleague, and we're trying to listen, and then somebody else is having a chit chat here, and I've already said to them at the beginning, I have auditory sensory processing difficulties, and they're chatting. Now they're all there for the same reasons, because they want to, you know, their kids have got autism or ADHD, or, you know. And I'm like, ladies, can you be quiet, please? And they sometimes, most of them are all like, oh, sorry. Like, some of them get a bit arsey, and I just think, well, like, A, it's rude, and B, I've already told you that I've got ADHD and I've got auditory processing difficulties. Is that how you are with your kid? You recognising these things, but actually you're ignoring the fact that they have got these differences, and that does actually upset them. But, you know, I'm doing so it's finding that line as well, because a lot of people will say, oh, my kid's got all of these differences, but they don't actually, and this is really bad, and I do, this is not all parents, this is minority, so please don't come at us about this one. There are parents out there that will say, my kid's got this, and this, and makes absolutely no adaptations to support that.
Yeah.
And
it's just like they say it out loud, and that means, okay, what are you doing about that? And they're like, well, I was waiting for someone else to do something.
No, there is nobody else out there to do it for you.
Yeah.
You have to work it out yourself. And this is one of the biggest things we say, especially on those early journeys. We have to play detective. We have to work out what's going on. And actually that links neatly back into this, you know, what's going on with my boy, because we're seeing a pattern of behaviour at the moment. So his key work is really good. So what we do is we think, oh, okay, actually, and then we go, right, is there a pattern? So she'll start digging in, seeing what's being logged onto the systems and things like that. And then we'll go, yes, okay, right, let's work on that, because that seems to be the problem. My boy's hasn't been medicated for about 2 years now. He didn't want to take them anymore. We are getting to the point where he doesn't want to do that. I don't really know how much I can push up against my 14-year-old. I can't force him to take them, but I can.
Legally, you've got 2 years. I'd say my mum put it to me that I can force you to take these till you're 16, and then if you're 16 you don't take them, you're leaving.
Yeah.
That's my choice. It's like, you're 16, but you can go leave the house as well.
It's getting to that point. I mean, I will say, you know, for a lot of kids, you know, generally we are medicating them because it makes adults' life easier. If the kids don't feel the benefit themselves. So with my boy at the moment, he's you know, the hormones are obviously problem. So from a kid that's come with absolutely no self-esteem, he's getting angry because he's got no self-esteem, no confidence, he's feeling blah. He's now like he's arrogant. He's a little bit like too, you know, that kind of swagger that they get, and he's thinking he's all like gangster and, you know, standing there with his hands on his cuff, and it's just.
Voice changing, the slang started to come out, and I'm just thinking, hang on, what's going on? Like, what is going on?
I get called bruv. What did he call me? Cuz, blood, G. And I'm like, who are you, G?
I was going, what, Wallahi the other day, and I was thinking, I was like, what the hell is he saying? And I was like, did he just say that? He said it again, and I was like, Gavin, I said, you're not Muslim for one. Why are you saying Wallahi? I was like, do you even know what that means? Like, what's going on?
Oh my god! Oh, I get called mate. I'm not your mate. Love. I'm like that. I'm going to put your head through the window at the moment. And then he's like, I said Marv, or he'll go love, like that. And I'm for. Honestly, it's you know, I call us dysfunctionally functional. We we bounce off, but we've been seeing these. He's been getting into a lot of bother at school. He's turning up. So at his school, what they do is they have like a criteria. So they get yellows and reds. Yellows are for the minors, reds are for the big ones. When we're talking, because of the type of school it is, these kids are dangerous, can get dangerous. They are really heavy on their behaviour policy. You know, there has been some stuff where they, you know, they do get put into restraint. I hate it. They know with me, if he gets hands on, I need to know every single detail that's going on. So he's been really pushing things at the moment and mucking about. And there's one particular teacher who was his key worker, but we had to get that changed because this key worker and my boy were triggering off on each other. We've also had it recently with a TA. Now, there's nothing particularly wrong with this TA. Not that I know. I haven't met her. I don't know. My boy don't like her. Whatever she says or does, he responds back. He's horrible to her. He, you know, calls her a fat. You know, it's like, when the words are coming out, he's absolutely horrific. And I have to say to him, like, I'm embarrassed of you. That's not how I'm raising my son. You don't get to speak to women like that, because we have a responsibility, you know, for when we're raising girls and boys. I've raised my girls. She stands her own ground. She has to be, you know, you treat yourself with respect and you make sure that other people treat you with respect, but you hold your own. You don't need or depend or rely. You know, you have to be independent. You know, yes, you can ask, you have to teach her to ask for help as well, which kind of goes, and this is the whole thing we go again, everything's a contradiction. ADHD is a whole contradiction. But this is where we have to keep, you know, there's no black and white. We have to move things. Yes, we have to be independent, able to take care of ourselves, and we need to teach our children that, but we also need to be able to be compassionate and kind, but know when to reach out for help. With boys, especially with the whole kind of, like manosphere and all the, you know, all this stuff being the Andrew Tates and stuff like that, all of this crap being pumped into their little heads, it's even more important that these boys are learning that respect and boundary. It's really hard when a girl is, if you've been out of order, it doesn't matter what sex or gender you are, you're being out of order. You know, I say to my kids, if someone smacks you, then you smack them back. I don't really care that way, but you don't go out of your way. You're not calling, you know, your female teachers bitches or sluts.
Yeah, I've seen the parenting angle on that, and that just shows you what happens when you effective parent with morals, and they do overpower ADHD and autism, because I know kids, and I know if that's built into them deliberately. It was very common, even going through the care system, that there'll be kids that would have incidents, go to breakdown, that would never touch a woman.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they've been told not to, they've been raised not to do that. So that just shows you, like, as much as everyone goes, they go to Christ and they couldn't help it, if you get installed the right morals and the right, just general child things, that overpowers that.
Absolutely. And I've said to the school, anytime, even if it's just under his breath, anytime he feels like, you know, he forgets himself and he calls, you tell me, you email me straight away, and there are non-negotiables, I will have him up. And there's been points where he's got upset and then he said things and he's caught himself and he's looked at him going, please don't tell my mum.
And that's what you mean. It's
no, straight away. Yeah, and that's the thing as well. We've got into this, because my kids will be like, oh, I'm going to tell my mum. And I'm like, no, we're not getting in that one. I want to hear your version of events, because even if it might be slightly out, what your perception has happened is important. And I want to hear all of that. I want you to always be able to come to me and tell me what's happened and what's made you feel that way, what you think your trigger points are, and I'm going to listen to all of that. And then the school is going to contact me, or they've already contacted me, and I'm going to hear all of them. And then somewhere in the middle...
Yeah, that's what happens.
So sometimes there's times where you're like, right, well, this is not making sense. There was, you know, one occasion, it was with one of the behaviour support team, and he was saying something about, I can't even remember, something about like the police and whatever, and I was like, what? So I said, because it's a special school, there's CCTV camera everywhere. Obviously, they can't hear what they're saying, but they can watch. Now, my boy is really, and most kids, autism and ADHD, we're really sensitive to body language. If your body language, your energy is not matching what's coming out of your mouth, I am immediately off with you. You know, me and my boy are very similar like that. I'm like, you know, I feel a room's energy as soon as I walk in it and go, yeah, no, we're out of here. So they actually took that back and they watched the CCTV, and he watched it. He was the guy watched it himself, and he was like, wow, my body language. So my boy was sat down. This was about 2 years ago, and you know, he's a 6'2" guy, you know, like that. But he said, oh, the words I was saying, but this is, you know, no wonder, because then my boy had launched himself at him, really angry. He ended up with one of those horrible holds up against the wall. And I was really kicking off because I was like, that should not have happened. Where did that? So that actually then got taken back on a reflection of, we need to be more conscious about what we're doing with our tone of voice and our body language rather than just the words coming out of the mouth. Because we don't work with the schools and say, like, we need to dig into this deeper. Schools aren't always open about when you turn around and say you need to reflect on your behaviour as well. But ultimately, what we want to be doing is we want to prevent these situations happening in the first place. And 9 times out of 10, it's going to come back to the adult.
And it's crazy. I used to, and I don't know if I did for a little while. I don't think it lasted very long. When I was working in care, especially when I was doing the management, right, I had a big bugbear because you would have an incident, and then you do an incident sheet, and then the incident sheet would be sent to that person's social worker, and then that's a mark on their file. Do you know how many of them incidents were caused by staff members doing something wrong? And I was like, there needs to be somewhere in the incident sheet that you say what could have been better, or even a reflection of what staff input or what responsibility the staff had, because
it's happening like, beforehand.
Yeah, it's written like they're standing there, then they just bit me in the face and threw everything off. But what had actually happened? You turned up 2 hours late. You said you wasn't going to go somewhere. They've been sitting there, and then you gave them something they didn't even like to eat. So it's, and then that's the kick off.
Then they get angry.
Yeah, that doesn't get put in the report. All it does is the behaviour that gets stuck with that person, that adult, for the rest of their life. So if they try to move, go anywhere else, their hours, all the support they get is tied to that one behaviour when you've caused it. It's so unfair.
It's like when you're looking at suspensions and exclusions and things like that as well, especially, you know, was the SEND support plan followed? Was the EHCP followed? Where we're saying that, you know, this is where it's really, really important. You know, we put a lot of emphasis on schools, but we have to strip that right back to the beginning. We need to know our children. Mm-hmm. Now, it's really hard to know what our children are like at school because we're not at school. So, you know, with my boy, he's never been violent at home. Never once has he lost shit at home with me. My daughter, yeah, she'd come at me. She was like, oh my gosh, such an angry little thing. But my son never raised a fist, never launched himself at me, never smashed his room up. He's never shown any of that behaviour at home. So what I was being told about this particular kid was like, I don't know who that is, but I'm not disbelieving you. But what we're going to say is what's different. Obviously, home's a safe place, but you know, we've got to work together to understand this. So I start looking about what are his sensory needs. I start looking at, you know, things that are, you know, start unpicking him. But when we sit down with our kids and go, right, well, what was the problem then? What upset you about? What did you do that? And do you honestly, you know, they're not going to do it. If we sit down with our questions and answer it, they're not going to be able to do it. As some of the ADHD and myself, you know, you can say to me, what's your name? And I'll go, ooh. Okay, I forgot. Because you've asked me a direct question, I don't know the answer. But if you can just let me just freely talk. Find with kids, they are a lot more open to talking about when you're driving the car, because it's not face on.
All the time, yeah.
Sitting in the back, they'll blabber away. My daughter was a great one. I'd just get into bed, I would just be getting settled in, and then pop, she'd be backside, sat on the end of my bed. Now she wants to talk. Right, fine, let's go. You know, and these are the kind of adaptations that we need to make. You know, there has to be a compromise. We can't let kids lead everything, but we do need to work with them, because kids don't get an awful lot of say in what's going on in their lives. Adults make all the decisions for them. And then you've got the kids that, you know, there are no decisions being made for them. And then they are really struggling, because children by nature, children need boundaries and discipline. And children by nature will push boundaries. That's what kids are meant to do. That is how we learn. You know, we have to learn by our mistakes. We can't protect our children from absolutely everything going on. we have to help them manage these circumstances. Yes, there is certain stuff that's not appropriate for children to know about, but you know, we can't wrap them up in you know, bubble wrap all the time. So we have to let them make their own decisions and make their own mistakes, and then we're there to help them learn from that mistake. We don't carry on doing so. But also, we need to show that we are learning and we mess up. And you know, there's times when, you know, the kids will come home from school or whatever, and you're trying to cook dinner and the phone's ringing and stuff like that. You've had a really crappy day at work, or you've just had an argument with somebody, and you know, you're in a really tired, crappy mood, and your kid comes and asks for something one more time, and you're like, you lose your shit. It happens, you know, we're human beings. You know, and your kid goes off and blah, 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 and then, you know, that can really escalate. But actually, the best thing to do, really, I found through my experiences, once you've settled yourself, is to go to your kid and say, do you know what, I'm really sorry. That was my fault.
Yeah,
I shouldn't have done that. Yeah. And we see parents that will do that, but then they'll go on to but you shouldn't have done, just leave it at that. No, they shouldn't have done that. They know that, you know that, but actually, you started that by the way that you behaved. Own up, take accountability, move on from the situation, because then you become a safe place for your kid to go, oh, do you know what, I'm really messed up at school today, and you're going to get a phone call from the teacher, and you know, this is what happens, and blah, 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 blah. So then, like, you've got the heads up already to go, yeah, do you know what, he's already spoken to me about that, and this is their point of view. What are you, right, okay, let's see that. Right, okay, well, that might be, you know, in the incident yesterday, he thought he'd been put into isolation, and I was like, I hate isolation. It is one of my biggest things with kids, especially neurodivergent kids. Do not ever put them in isolation. It does not work for them. You are literally just pulling apart their whole, they're just being put on their own to, well, I hate it. I hate the whole thing about it.
Do you think, like,
but he hadn't been put into isolation because it's not a thing there. He'd been taken up to the hive because he was being an absolute shithead. But because we're still trying to push on his, like, he's got quite significant language delays and social communication problems, and I'm really, you know, I've been saying for many years that there's a learning difficulty there that we just cannot get to the bottom of, and trying to get referrals out, and it's just hard work every which way. So you get your autism and ADHD diagnosis, but you know, there's other stuff going on, and you know, then you actually can't get to the bottom of it because everything's, oh, they've got autism, or oh, they've got ADHD, and then you're banging your head against a brick wall still. So you know, I'm talking about a kid that's got both of his two diagnoses. He's got an HCP and he's in a special school, and I'm still trying to fight to find out what's happening with him. So because of this, he had misheard that. So when I had the phone call, she said, well, no, we would never put him into isolation. I was like, she said, we know how you feel about that one. You know, they know if that was a thing, that I would literally be down there ripping heads off, because that's a non-negotiable for me. Work around anything else that you need to do, but you are not using that on him. But he had misunderstood what was being said to him. Basically, they were saying to go into the hive, which is an area where the kids that can't access what they class as their mainstream, that are really, really struggling. There was nobody up there. They've got their neutral space. He was told, go in there, you know, once you're calm and you're regulated, we can go and, you know, do that lesson in here, whatever, and then we can see about whether or not you can go back into lessons, your main lessons. He just heard go into the neutral space and rest of the day. So he'd missed this whole bit in the middle, and that's what stuck in his head. So he's not lying to me. The school aren't lying to me. He's just blipped out a bit because he's already heightened. Yeah. And then he's not willing, because he's stubborn, to alternate that. And I'm trying to explain that to him. And he's like, no, they're lying. They're lying. They're lying, Cody. Why would they lie to me? I've got, you know, built a good relationship with these guys. Yes, we've had ups and downs. And, you know, she did actually say to me on the phone, you know, because there was an incident last week where he wasn't as honest. He's taken up to running up and down the corridors in the school, trying to climb over fences, trying to climb through holes in fences. He's just generally making a pain of himself at the moment. So what he's been doing is trying to play dodge it with the teachers and stuff like that. So, you know, he'll dodge one way. So it sounds fun, but could you imagine actually how that would feel if you're at work, if you are those teachers and you are trying to teach your class. Yeah, and you know that doctor. After a while, you're gonna get a bit fed up with this kid and think, I'm gonna. Like, so with this particular teacher, now he tells me, he's going, I've got a mark on my elbow, and I'm like, well, how'd you get that, mate? This on Friday, and he said, oh, like Mr. pushed me into the window, and I was like, well, why did Mr. push you into the window? And he said, well, you know, I was up and down the corridor. So I said, so basically he was trying to block you getting past him because you were up to your nonsense. And he went, no, he just shoved me in there. And I said, right, okay then. So then I called him back down again in bed, and he said, what are you doing? I said, I'm taking some photos. I said, where are these bruises? He's always covered in bruises. I said, where are these bruises? He said, well, I don't know. And I said, well, I don't look particularly fresh, but, you know, just in case, we want to be sure. But he said, well, what are you doing? And I said, well, I need to let school know, don't I? We can't be having, you know, this happening. Now, he's kind of abused us in a situation here because I don't particularly like this teacher anyway. When he was a key worker, I called him out on something. He got quite arrogant with me, and I called him out on his arrogant, basically told him he had small dick syndrome. And then he got to change a key worker. So I've already got a kind of with this particular teacher. And my boys manipulated that. So I've said now I've got a really good relationship with one of the Senkos there and a good relationship with his key worker. So I've said, you know, I want the incident reports, I want the ins and outs, and once you've got everything together and you've spoken to my boy, then you can give me a call. So they've duly done so, watched all the CCTV, and then what she's actually done is she's actually pulled the CCTV back and watched it from the 20 minutes before this so-called incident as well, and there were no hands on. He's gone to the window, but she said, like, everything I've watched, and I know they would be honest because they'd be all over it. So then I've said, right, this nonsense in the corridors, because some of the teachers will have the laugh and a joke with him, you know, but it's now getting to a point it's causing a problem. So I'm saying it stops now. So we need to look at, you know, the yellow thing is not working for him because the criteria, even though I've got a scheme in at home, every day he doesn't get a yellow, he gets £1. So then, like, he's got the potential of getting £5 at the end of the week to go to the shop, get him sweets, crisps, or whatever. What I did say this week, so if he does every day without a yellow, I'll double it to £10. He hasn't achieved that one. And to work on giving him something, you know, responsible. Because also, so as we're chatting and we're kind of trying to think, right, well, what is going on? Why are we seeing this escalation in this behaviour with him? You know, something else is going on. So GCSEs. So he's just come to the end of year 9. He is not able to sit in English GCSE because he's so far behind, and he was kicking off about it with his teachers. So in the end they gave in and they said they let him sit the entry assessment. It's called 0. So when he was coming home, so when they explained to me, he was like, it's just because I didn't do enough work. It's just because I didn't do enough work, Mum. They just didn't listen to me. They didn't listen to me. I'm going to do it. They are stopping me doing my English GCSE. So it's a really hard situation. Because he's in like this bottom set. He's in the kind of like special intervention. You know, he's been really, like, his teacher was just, she is so stuck by him, and he has been really horrible to her at times, but she's worked so hard, and actually the pair of them have worked really hard to kind of repair the relationship and keep on working. And he spelt you. So I said, how do you spell you? And he went, you. I said, no, how do you spell you? He went, you. And I said, no, Y-O-U. And he laughed at me, and I said, right, now that is one, it's not about how much you wrote. I said, in English GCSE you need to be able to spell and grammar and capital letters. Basics. And he was like, oh, so then we have to have this is your skills. So we know that that's sitting underlying, but of course the exams are going on within the school. It's quiet here, it's quiet there. So we're kind of like thinking in the back of his mind somewhere, that's making him feel pretty crappy about himself. Because he wants to be a PE teacher TA, but he knows he needs his maths and English. But now he also knows there's no way of him sitting in, he's not listening to us because he doesn't understand about functional skills and things like that. He's just not hearing that there are other things, because there's just so much, I hate GCSEs, everything, there's so much pressure everywhere you go about these GCSEs, and if you don't get them, then basically you're going to account to nothing in life and you're going to be a failure. And there are ways around everything. I got one C in English for GCSE. I think that was about it. And we think this might all be having that kind of subconscious impact on him. So now what we're going to be doing is looking at giving him some kind of responsibility. And then yesterday there was these incidences, and we were talking through and what was going to be doing. They've got the school's 50th celebration today. Doesn't want to get another red note, it's fine. This teacher's going to pick him up. They're going to go and do X, Y, Z with him. Right, that we're going to put that into place. Right, we're going to get a sound timer because he likes to go for walks all the time. This is causing a lot of problems. He wants to go for walks, but you'll get into the lesson and then say, can I go for a walk? So they've made the agreement, no, you've got to be in there for 10 minutes, but somebody needs to go, with him at the moment because he can't be trusted. ADHD, they'll say a couple of minutes. ADHD, that's 10 seconds, isn't it? It's, so it's understanding that actually his concept of time, it's not the teachers not doing it in a couple of minutes, it's just that a couple of minutes to him is only like 10, 20 seconds. So they're like, I've just told you, Cody, I need to do this. And of course, when we put ourselves in this situation at home, when our kids are doing this with us at home, then we understand that actually, oh yeah, they do that. And then actually, how can we... So this is why it's so important to work with the schools and then think about how their behaviour impacts us at home sometimes and what we have to do to navigate that, and then throw those suggestions at school. And then because it actually could be that there's a behaviour that they're doing at school that the school have been, they've got it sorted, it's working for them, and actually that can help you at home. Like when we're working with them, that's when we're getting the best results for our kids, because we're not always going to agree, but at the end of the day, we're adults. And they are children, and it doesn't matter if that child is 5 or if they're 16, we are the responsible adults. So if we can't show them that we can work with other adults, even though there are differences, then we're back to modelling behaviour. What are we modelling for them? That actually, if you don't like somebody, if they're not doing what you want them to do, then you have to deal with them and you kick off from that. You actually need to do everything first. Sometimes you still end up in that situation. Some people just don't want to be worked with, and that's, really, really unreasonable. But that goes for teachers, head teachers, governors, and parents. There is unreasonable. We are all human beings, and, all of us can be unreasonable at certain times. So we have to...
I think that, do you know what, I was going to say, that was kind of what I was going to ask anyway about the thing, but that's a nice way to include it, isn't it? Because that's kind of looped all the way back from the beginning about modelling behaviour and then working together and stuff like that. So that's actually really fitting in nicely, actually, to be fair. I think a lot of what you've said today, it means it's great, because this is why I like speaking to you, because you've got the unique perspective of how coming from so many different angles. So you can see the parent, the teacher, the professional, you can see all sides of it and kind of come to that grey area. And I think it's not easy to do that, because again, you have to, instead of having one line, it's always harder to find the truth, isn't it, than it is to listen to the first bit you hear. So it's harder to, the news could tell you one thing, it's harder to actually find out if that's true or not. It's hard to disprove what you find. It takes effort, doesn't it, rather than that one sentence. So it's not hard to do, and it's good. And I hope that people listening to this will take the big message about this, isn't it, about modelling behaviour and about how we need to be accountable. And also, I like the bit that you were saying about the kids' behaviour, listening to the kids' behaviour, but not automatically trusting it, in the sense of get the behaviours in and then come to your conclusion about what's most likely and stuff like that. A bit like fact finding, how they do that in court, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, but making sure that the child, you have to let your child know you believe them. And then once you have got all the facts and you're having that calm, I say, like, my boy got a bollocking the other day, and I said to him, I'm giving you a hard talk, because actually you were not truthful with me, were you? And he was,
and that's when you can know the difference.
By doing that face and the gimp, and they go, oh, what are you talking about? And that, you do, and let's have it out with you, and that's the importance of building a strong relationship with your child, because when I said to him, these are things that I'm saying to the school that need to stop. This is not the school coming to me and saying blah, blah, blah. This is me. I said, so, if you're hating up on anyone, you're going to be hating on me. And he looked at me, bless him. And this is everything about our relationship. And I am so grateful and I am so blessed, I know, to have this relationship that I've got with him. But he looks at me and he went, why would I hate on you? And honestly, my heart could have melted, but I still had to be right there for mum, because I was doing discipline. I wasn't doing like, oh, my baby boy kind of shit. And I had to allow a certain amount of time before, not a long time, like half an hour or so, before then I could slip back into, mucking about mum and having cuddles and, that kind of thing. And it is hard. There's a lot of single parents out there and we have to play both hats. It's tough.
Yeah. And it's even that, you don't get to share responsibility in that sense, do you? Because you don't get to one person be the bad cop, the other one be the good cop. It's not like that at all. It's like you're doing everything, and it's your decision, and even making a decision, isn't it? Sometimes I wish that someone just made a decision for me. I'm like,
Yeah, that's the hardest one,
just,
isn't it? Yeah.
like, just do something about him. I'm sick of having to work this out all the
Yeah.
time. Like,
It's running
but
things.
no,
Sometimes you just want to run things past because you don't, am I being too hard? Am I being too
that's it.
soft?
Yeah,
Blah,
yeah,
blah, 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 blah. And it's really, those are the toughest times, I think, sometimes, because you just, like, with my boy at the moment, I just think, like, with why it's so hard to build his confidence up and his self-esteem and to make him feel established and part of that, you know, his school family. And, you know, that is everything I've ever wanted for him. You know, that is it. But we're also on grounds where I've got to be really brutally honest with him, and like, because I don't want to take away any of that confidence or that self-esteem, but also I don't want to be one of those pricks down the pub that thinks they know everything.
no,
You
yeah,
know,
that's it,
it's
yeah.
kind of like, there's always a Dave that knows Steve or knows everything. You think, oh my God, shut up! Like, it's always someone else's fault or all that kind of stuff. I'm not raising my boy. I'm not sending that out to the world. We're not doing that, you know. So again, that is not on schools.
No,
That's my responsibility. How I want my son to be, the kind of person I want him and that I'm going to release out into the world, is solely on me.
that's it.
You know, and
And what a heavy thing to leave us with, isn't it? Like, we're responsible for our kids' behaviour. Imagine that. No, that's frightening, isn't it? I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, I can kind of manage my own. Like,
it
but no,
really is.
but no,
It's a
yeah.
balance.
I mean, thank you for today. And I've been again. I like to say this. It's not going to be the end. We've got you coming onto the app anyway to do some stuff in July, so that's exciting. And I think we've got to do a drop-in session as well, so that's going to be great for the parents in there to do it. So I think, yeah, this is the beginning of the working together, and we've got another exciting collab that I think we'll talk about at the beginning. That's going to be great. So yeah, this will be the first and not last time that we get you speak. But and again, I think that there's a lot about different subjects we could dive into. I think we could do like an hour episode on anything, really, isn't it? I think it's one of them ones, isn't it? So it's great. But yeah, no, thank you for your time today and everything. And this it's already done it. There's no delays. I can see it's already recorded, so that there's no. Yep, and I haven't got a microphone, so that means there's going to be no mic issues. So that's good. So, yeah, no, thank you very much for coming on today and your time. That's it.